Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this regularly scheduled City Council meeting. It's Tuesday, August 5th, 2025. It's 7:30 p.m. We're going to stand and, well, first I'd like to call this meeting to order, and then we're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to remain standing for a moment for words of inspiration. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you for our city of Clawson. We thank you for all of our servants who work for our community, whether they be for our protection or just for our service. We thank you for the people who live here, for the businesses who choose to be here, and we thank you for all that you do to make our lives special. We ask that you give protection to our community and also to give guidance to those of us who are serving and those who are living here to understand each other and to live in harmony. In this we ask in your name. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you very much. May we have a roll call, please, Nick?
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Present.
Councilmember Scott.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Thank you. As we are all here, we will move to approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, if I may, I'd like to move that we approve the agenda for Tuesday, August 5th, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett.
Yes.
Councilmember Scott.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to move to public comment. This public comment is for items that are on the agenda. So if there's anything on our agenda this evening, we welcome you to come to the podium. We ask that you state your name and your address, and we'll allot you 3 minutes to speak. Hi, guys. Hello.
Joanne Coley, I'm speaking on 9E, I believe it is, Renshaw Apartments. Got that right. I have sent an email to the city council, all 5 of you, and I have received 2 of them back, 2 answers, and I'd like to read it for those who didn't read it. Just some info on Renshaw Apartments. The payers of Clawson are not supporting the old people. The current rent is $88,740. That is more than the cost the city spends to maintain the building. I would like to say also that it's not only 15 residents that reside there, but it's the residents that have resided there for 44 years. That has to be in the hundreds. This is one thing that makes Clawson the little city with the big heart. I can only hope that you will vote with what you think is right and not someone else's opinion. Thank you. See you Tuesday night. Remember, little city with the big heart. Okay, I've been a resident of Clawson for 64 years. I've paid taxes for 35. And now I live at Renshaw for 12 and a half. And again, at the current rent of $88,740, it's more than what it costs the city to maintain this building. And there is also a fund to make major repairs that comes from our rent money. We are not a burden to the taxpayers of Clawson. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Heather Rinkovich, Clawson, Michigan. Every time I come to these council meetings, I hope I don't have to come to this podium, and yet here I am again. But this one is incredibly important for the community and for council to both see and understand. Back in March, I met Joanne here at these council meetings as she was advocating for her home and her friends at the Renshaw Apartments. Tonight, I want to introduce the council and community to these neighbors who have now become my friends. Dave, Michelle, Doug, Sophia, Dorothy, Teresa, and Joanne. As you look at these community members and neighbors of ours, I want you to keep in mind that in today's America, we are all facing a massive housing crisis. New budget cuts from the federal government to Medicaid and to Medicare, as well as to Social Security. 65% of nursing home residents are Medicare and Medicaid recipients. Our housing crisis, let alone our senior housing crisis, is about to get a whole lot worse. The city of Clawson wants to sell off an asset. However, I don't see where city leadership has any plans for any seniors, let alone what your plans are for these seniors and the rest who live at 121 Renshaw. How about before we destroy an occupied asset, we workshop or we have planning sessions on what options the current seniors living in these apartments may have if their home is sold and they find themselves homeless or displaced. I'll leave you with this. The average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in Clawson is $1,100. The cost to rent a one-bedroom at Renshaw is $495. Rent-controlled apartments are not some wild, absurd idea. That's what those with powerful real estate interests and corporate overlords would all love to make us believe. Rent-controlled means affordable, cost of living, accessible housing for working class and middle class communities. It allows families to stay together and close to who and what they know. And who and what these seniors know is our Clawson community. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alex Morford. I live at 503 West Sunnybrook Drive in Royal Oak, very close to Clawson. Close enough that I walked here tonight and I frequently walk past the Renshaw Senior Apartments. There's a major shortage of affordable housing in Oakland County, so I'm here tonight to request you keep the Renshaw Senior Apartments affordable. Please consider partnerships with nonprofits, the Oakland County Neighborhood and Housing Development Department, and/or the Michigan State Housing Development Authority to see if they can help with any of the possible expenses or liabilities, but please do not put sale of this property on the ballot. Thank you for your time tonight.
Hi, Jamie Gills, Tecanochi. I'm going to switch to 9D, which is the filling of the vacancy. First, thank you for bringing this forward. I think it's wonderful that we're finally working on this ordinance. I does feel like just kind of everything's in there. I would ask the council to think about removing the consensus appointment, which is number 2 in the ordinance. Basically says that you can just pick somebody without any interview process or without doing anything else that is transparent. So I would ask that you consider just removing that part. I also think that the actual process from this is really important, getting it triggered right away. Maybe that's all that detail doesn't go into an ordinance, but I think that's something you have to think about instead of waiting till the next council meeting. Some of this can be triggered as soon as you know there's a vacancy. And then the last thing is I think that I recommend also considering somewhere in here before the council vote, there's public comment on who is being seated on the council in case of a vacancy. Thank you.
Or anyone else? Hello, my name's Meredith Peltonen. I live at 318 Broadacre in Clawson, and I am here to discuss, or just make a comment on the words of inspiration that we have every week to start the meetings is a Christian prayer. And when I hear things like Heavenly Father and in Jesus' name we pray, amen, it feels like just more divisive, offensive, unnecessary statements. I don't know that the words of inspiration were ever really words of inspiration or if they were just labeled that, but I think we could just do away with it altogether and say separate church and state from here on out. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for an item on the agenda this evening? Okay, not seeing anyone else come forward. We'll close public comments for items on the agenda and move to item 7. We have no proclamations or presentations this evening, so we'll move to item number 8. Item number 8 would be consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item A, minutes of the special city council meeting held on Thursday, July 10th, 2025, as presented. Item B, minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, July 15th, 2025, as presented. And item C, a list of bills in the amount of $4,554,570.21.
So moved.
Thank you.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan? Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt?
Yes.
Councilmember Scott?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
And Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. We've approved our consent agenda, and we'll move to item 9A. 9A, which is consideration of a resolution in support of the application of a development Class C liquor license sought by Central 41 LLC to be located at 41 South Main Street, Clausen.
Madam Mayor, I move that the application from Central 41 LLC for a development Class C liquor license to be located at 41 South Main Street be approved, and that it is the consensus of this body that it recommends this application be considered for approval by the Michigan Liquor Control Commission.
Support. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Central 41 LLC is making plans to take over the space that has been vacated by Clausen Grill at 41 South Main Street. They're making application with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, the MLCC, for a development Class C liquor license and have agreed to comply with the requirements set forth. In order to submit the application to the MLCC, it requires a resolution by the local legislative body. The resolution form is attached. The site plan has been approved to renovate the restaurant with interior upgrades and minor improvements to the exterior facade. The business plan for Central 41 is a modern, community-focused establishment that aims to provide a safe, welcoming environment for patrons to enjoy high-quality food and beverages, including responsibly served alcoholic beverages. Their goal is to support local economic growth while prioritizing compliance with city regulations, public safety, and neighborhood harmony. While not part of this application, the space next to Central 41, located at 45 South Main, will become a coffee shop owned and operated by the same group. The applicant will be present to introduce the business and answer any questions.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to come forward and share a little bit about your upcoming business?
Hello, council members and Madam Mayor. My name is Johnny Thomas. I'm a liquor license consultant here on behalf of the applicant Central 41, here to answer any questions or concerns.
Hours of operation, do we have that established yet?
To be determined.
Okay.
But it would probably be, open for lunch and dinner and late night.
Okay. I just bring it up because the previous tenants were there for breakfast and they closed up fairly early. I did recall that they did have some opportunities to serve alcoholic beverages, but that wasn't necessarily their main ambition or goal. But as far as, I guess I would like to know what the hours of operation are. Have you been presented to the planning commission for what's happening internally? Or is it something that, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, their site plan has been fully approved, and so
okay.
they're in the process of getting their building permits and
Perfect,
going
okay.
through that process.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I'll refer back to that. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions? I know that this development is probably one of the most anticipated developments in this community in a while. It's one of the most favored questions, what's going on with Clausen Grill? But I think we're all hopeful that they will be bringing in a really nice restaurant to provide a different level of service and a little bit of variety for what we have currently. So
Yes.
we wish them well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffitt,
Yes.
Councilmember Scott,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
and Mayor Milan.
Yes. Thank you. We have just
Thank you.
approved the application from Central 41 LLC for the development Class C liquor license to be located at 41 South Main Street be approved. Moving to item 9B, we have consideration of the appointing officer, delegate, and alternate for the Michigan Employees Retirement System, 79th Annual Meeting at the Grand Traverse Resort, Acme, Michigan, from October 16th through 17th, 2025.
Madam Mayor, I move that Kristen Urbanek be designated as the officer delegate and Nick Stepnitz as the officer alternate for the city of Clawson to the Michigan Employees Retirement System, otherwise known as MERS, 79th annual meeting to be held in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from October 16th to the 17th, 2025. Be approved.
Support. Thank you. Do we have any information that you want to share, other than there is a conference on those dates, and we have 2 people who want to go? Pretty much it? Okay. Roll call, please, then.
Councilmember Scott. So I'm not used to this. Councilmember Scott?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes. Thank you. We've just approved Kristen Urbanek and Nick Stepnitz as the officer alternate to attend the MERS conference in Grand Rapids. And we'll move to the next item, which is item 9C. We have consideration of designating a delegate and an alternate as the city official voting representative to the Michigan Municipal League Annual Convention in Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 17th through 19th, 2025. I would,
Well, we have
I know we have to make a motion,
Yeah.
so.
I move to appoint to be determined as the delegate and to be determined as the alternate for the Michigan Municipal League MML Annual Convention in Grand Rapids, Michigan on September 17th, 2025. Be approved.
Support.
Okay. I don't know if that was
Appropriate, but. No, it is. It works, actually. It was ingenious.
So should we add
Clarity to name
names? Should we
later,
fill in the
I
blanks? I'd like to attend. I've done it in the past and I do enjoy it. It's kind of an interesting thing, so I'd like to.
I think we need a roll call on that first
Oh,
motion to discuss.
I thought we could plug in a name and then do a roll call. No, of course not.
No, we discussed before roll call. We
Yeah, it's
discussed,
just-
yeah, and then he'll modify his motion.
Okay,
And then we'll have
gotcha,
a roll call.
gotcha.
I thought I was
the-
right.
So we've got one.
I will just state that I cannot attend, so.
Yeah, and I cannot either.
Well, that makes 3 I cannot. So that leaves Mr. Councilmember Anderson.
I'm out of luck, too.
So an alternate is in case the primary can't go, so it doesn't matter, because you're gonna go, so
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. All right, so,
I think we've had administration go in the past as an alternate, if I recall, but
Well-
it may have been a long time ago.
I can be an alternate since it doesn't matter.
We've also had multiple council members that want to attend in the past, and we've worked it that way as well. But
Okay.
So, Councilmember Shepherd, if you want to modify your motion.
I certainly will.
Okay, excellent.
So I will amend, or no, I guess it will be an amendment, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. I amend my motion to appoint Mayor Milan as the delegate and Mayor Pro Tem Moffett as the alternate.
Support.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Scott?
Yes.
thank you. We just approved me and Mayor Pro Tem as the delegate and alternate for the MML conference to be held in September. Next, we have agenda item 9D, which is consideration of a first reading of an ordinance to amend the Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council, Division 1, generally, Section 239, procedure options to fill vacancies on City Council.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Raker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated in the City Attorney's letter, the Ordinance Review Committee held several productive meetings focusing on the updating of antiquated and misaligned portions of the Code of Ordinances in light of the changes brought forth by our new charter. The ordinance new section 2-39 was recommended to move out of committee for council's consideration. Within there are 3 procedure options the council could exercise. 1, nomination and referral process which leads to the appointment procedure at formal session. 2, a consensus appointment. And 3, consideration of recent election results. The city attorney and staff are present for discussion.
Thank you. So when we were meeting on this item, we intentionally left it so that council could make the final determination on this, not just because it had to come back to council, but we had a lot of conversation and realized there were many ways we could do this, but we really wanted the input of council, so I would say that before we do anything,
And
yes.
so if I may, there was discussion on like trying to land on one of those options where when we met last, we were like, well, why not leave all the options in there and the council at the time, whoever they may be, can exercise those options.
And there is, Madam Mayor, with respect to the option, because one of the public speakers mentioned it, one of the option number 2, which talks about voting if consensus is available, it is already a right of the council as far as our code of ordinances and charter is concerned. Council moves by resolution, which means with respect to any item that we have that deals with code, that deals with appointments, consensus would carry the day. So you already possess that right, which is, I think, why we, recognizing that, we have that as an option here to make sure that there's no limitation in any way, shape, or form, at least in the way that, in the manner that we present the ordinance.
Perfect. So I have notes and comments, as you expected. So first of all, looking at section 1, I'd like to see a step between B and C. So B has the clerk announcing the vacancy and opening the applications. And then, and as we did last time, because we got so many candidates, we narrowed it down. We had a meeting where we narrowed it down to a subset of those candidates. And I would like to see that step be put in between B and C so that it's narrowed down to a workable group that we can have interviews for, and then go on with C, interviews in public and that sort of thing, and everything else as it's written. I agree with the removal of 2A. The concern is, and I get we can, we obviously majority rules and that sort of thing, but the consensus appointment, the way it's written, sounds like people are coming in having had outside conversations and that sort of thing, and I don't like the way that's written. The consensus appointment would suggest that we have to get applications, we have to understand who's interested. So if we don't have a process where people are bringing who's interested in to the clerk or to the council, there's no way to have a consensus without understanding who, through some sort of application process, who's interested in being part of the candidate slate. So I think 2A should be removed, and to Mr. Nushai's point, majority rules anyhow. And then I would also like to see 3 removed because it's too vague, and how do we, consideration to what end, how is that implemented? Do we all just think about it? Do we talk about it and then not use it? I mean, if we're going to point to the results of the, a most recent election, it should say what we do about the consideration. So we take the next highest vote or whatever it is. If we're not going to do all that, then let's just take it out. And in everybody's mind, through the application process, I kind of like the idea of people having to reapply because people might have hated the campaign process or decided late they don't want to do it. So if we have someone having to reapply after the election, and then as we're deliberating in open meeting and discussing with the candidate, we can take consideration that the public really liked that person. So I think it gets folded into the process if we have an application process. So those were my thoughts.
Any other
Well,
thoughts?
my thoughts are this. Currently, the charter says we have to fill it within 30 days. By definition, that's a pretty short period of time. And I wonder, why is it so short? Why not make it 60? Why not make it 90? Presumably, the people who drafted the charter were empowering the council to pretty much do as they saw fit. Under the current charter, we could draw names out of a hat. We could spin a roulette wheel. I'm not suggesting we do those things. My point is, the council should have a wide discretion. Frankly, I thought we did a pretty good job. Councilman Shepherd's to a ranked choice, and I agree with the pro tem, we need to boil down the number of interviews. We had 10 applicants, we could have 15 next time. We don't want to do 10 to 15 interviews. We want to do a handful. So laying this out, I mean, if we're going to write this out, then yes, I would agree we put something between B and C. I just question the need for the ordinance in the first place.
Because
I've heard a lot of people crying out, oh my gosh, you guys need an ordinance. I don't see any reason why we should.
the charter says we have to have one. The charter requires us to have one.
Okay, then it looks like we can just take 2A, which is what the kind of where we're at now, and approve that. But to walk through steps 1A through I, that's all just micromanagement as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's a good process to codify it, though, so people have expectations of what's going to happen, and so that there is no question. Because when we had the vacancy, well, two things. When we had the vacancy, we were like, oh, how do we do it? So we made something up, and this is fairly similar to what we made up. But also, in the past, when there's been vacancies, things didn't happen, and so this, Shepherd's, whoever's
What
up
things
here
didn't
into-
happen? Could you be more specific?
So, yeah, so back when Deborah Woolley, back in the day, had to resign to run for mayor, and there was a vacancy, they never filled it. They went on with a smaller group, right? So that was, and then also, Councilmember Shepherd can attest, when you were put in place when Mayor Milan had to resign and what's her name, Kathy Phillips had to resign, there was 2 open seats. There was no deliberation. There was no going out to the public. You guys just walked in one day and were sworn in because Councilmember Sampson and Mayor Scripture at the time said, we're going to appoint you. There was no open discussion. No one got to apply. So there was several times in the past where there were vacancies and there was concern from the public of how they were going to get filled or they just weren't filled. This codifies in perpetuity how we're going to do it. And that's always a good plan.
Mr. Ricker?
Yes, to the city attorney. So under the nomination referral process, to the pro tem's point, is there anything that is stopping the council from paring it down?
No.
Is there a need to add language?
If you recall our conversation during the, and I'm trying to remember now whether it was at the last meeting or at previous meetings, but part of the conversation with respect to the council, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, was the limit, the 30-day limit is so tight that adding triggers we could foresee becoming an issue even though well-intended. And I guess without stating it, the way it is presented to you, it would give the ability to the clerk to immediately trigger that. So could you do it? Absolutely. Unfortunately, timelines being as tight as they are based on the dictates of the charter, we all had a hesitation with adding that step. We spoke of it, I remember it specifically. It's entirely council's pleasure, but I imagine that because of that timeline, perhaps the way it is drafted, I think it probably accomplishes everything that council wants in that regard. And the paring, because the paring down, if you were thinking, Mayor Pro Tem, about the paring down, that's the timeline issue here. Council can at any time, just like the city manager, give timelines, deadlines to itself, right, at a meeting. Choice.
So would it be prudent to remove in B, 1B, C, applicants shall be interviewed? Should it be changed to chosen applicants by council can be interviewed? Something so that there is an enabling language so that the paring down, because, I can see to some point someone might camp out and say, you know what, it says here, I shall have an interview, and I applied.
What about council may establish an interview process if desired? Because it leaves it open because.
Don't just say it may, Yeah, not as far as desired, right? I mean, obviously that would be,
True. Yeah, I
right,
guess
so.
that would be
So
done.
you're saying 3C would be applicants may be interviewed?
Applicants may be interviewed.
I was fine with that.
And that's not a substantive change, is it?
No.
From
you can-
shall to may?
you know, Shall to may. No, council obviously can do it right now, and then it'll come back for a second reading. So that, in that sense.
That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
avoid.
To answer your question, absolutely.
Well, the applicants have to be interviewed in a public forum.
So, of course.
The issue is, if we get 15 people, we don't want to hold 15 interviews.
Exactly.
So that's why putting a selection step where we narrow it down to a subset, or if you don't want to add something between B and C and just want to modify C, you can change it to a subset of applicants shall be determined in interviews conducted in open meeting.
Certainly.
I agree with the pro tem's argument. I'm just thinking that substituting shall with may kind of does that for us.
No, because we have an obligation to hold interviews in a public session. So it's not like we can or can't hold interviews, it's just how many people we interview.
Right. It's the drawing down of the number that said, you know, there is superfluous language in there to accommodate a public need to review such an ordinance, but that the meetings, that the interviews will happen in a public setting, it goes without saying. Right. Our obligations exist whether or not we state that outright.
So
So I think you're right, Mayor Pro Tem, that if we're going to limit it, you are simply going to limit, I would suggest that we limit merely the portion that deals with the subset of applicants as opposed to the balance of the language.
So how would you rephrase it?
Yeah, well, my recommendation is leave it as is, but I would say a subset of,
So then
we
put
have
in
to
that
speak-
step in between.
Right, well,
If it's
you're
not
talking about
necessary.
paring it
I
down.
don't think it's, I don't see it necessary either. I
You're
feel
talking
like
about paring it down, and the
has to
paring it
happen.
down, because you won't have, think about it, in a 30-day, depending on how the 30-day plays, at most, you're going to have 2 meetings, unless you talk about a special meeting. That is part of the problem. That's why the language was left at this, because we see a tenuous problem, because you're mandating at that point, you're mandating a separate meeting or presuming that a separate meeting will be called, right? But 2 members of council may choose not to call. They may not exist, or the mayor may choose not to call for whatever reason. So that's.
So why don't we address that by mandating that a meeting will be held in between to establish the subset?
Because it might not be needed.
Yeah.
It may not, yeah.
Because you always will have, council always has the right to appoint at any time.
They have the right to appoint at any time, but we have an obligation, and we need to give the public assurances that it'll be done in an open and transparent manner. And so the ordinance gives those assurances to the public and solidifies the requirement that it'll be done in an open and transparent manner.
The
not a-
value of the virtue of that we serve here and we follow the things that are already written and prescribed to us says that we're going to hold our meetings in an open and transparent manner. Writing something that would even imply that we're not going to, that doesn't make any sense to me. I think we don't have an option. We're going to do it the right way. Let us just not make it, I think when we discussed it originally, the whole idea is to make it not so specific that you have to follow specific tenets in order to accomplish this, because with a 30-day timeline, it's difficult. You have to be able to pivot and flex, and that's what we did this past time. And I'm also opposed to saying we will hold a special meeting, because as you know, anytime you hold a special meeting for something that is of heavy weight, such as this, you get the calls from people who say you're trying to do something outside of a regular meeting, people won't pay attention, they only pay attention to regular meetings, and then there's that idea as well. So personally, I think simple is good.
That was precisely the conversation that took place on every time that we spoke about this, Mayor Pro Tem. And I leave you, obviously, to your thoughts and your opinion. I don't mean to quarrel with them in any way, shape, or form, but that was precisely what the Ordinance Review Committee struggled with when it came to this. Because no matter how we sliced it, we always came back to a point, well, how does it look to the public? And I agree with the mayor that was one of the considerations. The special meeting has, in the middle of this process, has a little flavor to it.
So obviously, because I've made the suggestion, it's not going to fly. So I will end the conversation. But Mr. Nushai, correct me if I'm wrong. Ordinances can be modified at any time. So
Yes, ma'am.
next year, people want to change it. It's
Absolutely.
super easy to change it.
Absolutely.
So this is just as good at this very moment, and it certainly can be corrected and cleaned up down the road.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Can be amended. This is not
Yes,
incorrect.
well, I guess I'm getting two opinions, and I'm going to blend the two. I agree with Mr. Raker that as currently worded, applicants shall be interviewed in a publicly noticed meeting. That suggests that anyone who applies must be interviewed, which I think is unworkable. I agree with, we could put instead of shall, may, but probably the pro tem is concerned that when we say may, it may mean zero. So we're kind of caught between here. Now, we can just throw up our hands and say, we'll amend it later. Or since we've already spent so much time here, maybe we can finish the job and get it done right. So if may is too general, should we put a minimum? Applicants, a minimum of such and such shall be interviewed. Or I mean, again, we're concerned about too big or too small.
Yeah, and it's contingent on how many applicants you get. We might get
Exactly.
one.
So that's why I'm saying may. I think we'll just do the job.
Mr. Raker?
Yeah, it's may in the context that you are abiding by the Open Meetings Act regardless.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So while we talk about that, one of my main concerns is regarding in the event of a tie. I don't see how we resolve ties regarding this ordinance.
We have the roulette wheel, and what else did you suggest, Mr.
I mean,
Raker?
it ultimately gets down to 2A as being the consensus. So unless there's something that's specific that we can all agree to as far as what we do regarding ties, because we can just get into an endless spiral as far as not being able to resolve that. And if we don't have an out, then nothing will get resolved. We may not even be able to end the meeting. Because if we're supposed to be shall, right, and it depends on who's asking the definition of shall, right, that shall is must. Is that fair, or?
Yeah, but not with respect to timeline and being in the meeting. Here, there's several shalls, as you've noticed on the ordinance itself. The one shall, obviously, that we've spoken up until this point, and then the consensus appointment is ultimately one big shall, and then also in making decisions, you shall take into account the previous election, right? So there's all of them kind of combined together to give you a process, and it's a process designed to be to thrive within the parameters of our charter at the end of the day. And no charter can be as precise as to be able to give an out when it comes to a 2-2 split, I imagine.
Yeah, or 3-3.
Well, I mean, yes, as may.
Which doesn't resolve our issues. But anyway, and I guess I'm not a particular fan of 3A. There may be reasons why whoever may be, was not selected, right? So I don't necessarily want to be tied to that situation. And the also is that if we only get one applicant, again, we have to be tied to that situation. I don't necessarily think that's fair to the council nor to the residents. There's one other thing. So, talked about the tie. And again, shall. So, there doesn't seem to be an end point on what's the efficacy of actually having a vacancy filled. If the vacancy ends up being in September and we have 30 days to fill, and depending on when it's in September, would they even be able to attend a meeting? But at the same time, we're required by this to actually have that seat filled, even though.
Well, you're required by the charter, obviously, to have it within 30 days. So in that sense, you point out perhaps a flaw, but nonetheless, we're required to engage in it, even though it may be futile in the big scheme of things as far as.
I just want to make that clear, right?
Sure,
that if this is all of futility, but this is what we're required to do by way the
Yes, sir.
charter is.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Yeah, with respect to item 1C, why couldn't we just say something that's kind of along the lines of Councilman Shepherd's comments, I guess, but why couldn't we just change it to say, up to, picking up 4, let's say, applicants shall be interviewed? Now, we don't know how many applicants we're going to get. We may interview up to 4, we may interview only 2, we may only interview 1. But up to 4, I picked 4, but it could be any number, shall be interviewed.
If you do that, you have to have a process to winnow it down to 4.
Correct. And it's just not stipulating what that process would be here.
So
But
we could do the ranked choice that Mr. Shepherd proposed, I thought, pretty good. Or you can do other means, but I think let the council figure that out. And you'll get your 4 people interviewed in a public setting.
And why 4? Like, I could see an instance where
I just
4 is
threw out
not a
just an
perfect
arbitrary
number.
number.
So, and I know you're just throwing it out as an
5,
arbitrary number, but I wouldn't want to identify an arbitrary number here, put 4 in to the
Greater than 1?
document.
A number to be determined by council.
Yes, perfect, right?
Is that a substantive change? If you
No,
were to
that's-
put
that's-
to number for 1C, a number of
Number of
applicants
applicants to be
determined by council.
council shall be interviewed. No, it's,
All right,
we
so-
can proceed with
okay.
that if council
There
is
we go.
in agreement.
So then, do we need a motion then to
Just
make
to
that
amend
amendment?
that particular, amendment 1C.
Madam Mayor, I move that we amend item 1C from the Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council Division 1, General Like Section 2-39, Procedure Options to fill vacancies in City Council to include decision, now I forgot what I was going to say, the ability to determine the number of applicants that shall be viewed or interviewed.
Support.
Any other comments?
So then, just to be clear, we'll make this basically a Scribner's modification.
Correct.
And then we're moving on to the second reading.
Correct.
Okay. Should it pass?
Should the amendment pass?
Roll call, please, Nick.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
No.
Councilmember Scott,
yes,
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Now they have to vote on the actual ordinance as amended.
On the first reading, as amended. But we already had that.
We already have the
Amended
motion.
it.
Yep.
Nick?
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Moffett,
No.
Councilmember Scott,
yes.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. We've just approved the first reading of the ordinance to amend Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2, City Council Division 1, General, Section 239, Procedure Options to fill vacancies on City Council as detailed in the proposed amendment with the changes that were just made. Moving on to item number 9E, we have consideration of placing the sale of Renshaw Senior Apartments located at 121 Renshaw on the November 4th, 2025 City General Election ballot.
Madam Mayor, I move the placing the sale of Renshaw Senior Apartments located at 121 Renshaw on the November 4th, 2025 City General Election ballot be approved.
Do we have support? Do we have support for discussion purposes?
I'll support for discussion.
Okay. Comments?
Yes,
Mr. Raker?
Madam Mayor, if I may. Per the City Charter, Section 3.03, Property Acquisition, Development, Disposition, the city shall have power, number 2, to maintain, develop, operate, lease, and dispose of its property subject to any restrictions placed thereupon by law or by this charter, provided that no property of value in excess of $400,000 shall be sold unless approved by a majority of the electors voting thereon at a city election. Concern for Renshaw came about during the development of the 2023-2024 budget. Substantial improvements were being considered, which forced the administration to consider what it would take to bring the structure into total ADA compliance. Attached are documents pertaining to the historical context of this agenda item from previous administrators and the ADA building audit report, which includes projected costs. Also attached are the legal concerns from our city attorney, which were discussed in closed session during council meetings earlier this year. The administration believes the city should not be in the business of being a landlord and encouraged council to consider placing the issue of selling Renshaw on the ballot for the residents to decide. Within the historical context document provided, a former city manager drafted ballot language that would have used proceeds from the sale for infrastructure. Perhaps consideration of using those proceeds for sustainment and improvement of senior services would be more equitable use of city services for all senior citizens. This consideration also aligns with Goal 1, deepen sense of place and community identity. Objective 10, identify the best use of property to ensure equitable access to quality public spaces. Currently, the fund balance for Renshaw is approximately $440,000 with an anticipated fair market value between $1.1 to $1.5 million. Staff are present for discussion.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson, you had comments about this. I'm going to let you lead with this conversation.
Okay, well, this is one of those things been going on for better than 40 years. And it's kind of like a can kicked down the road. A lot of people say, well, why do anything? I mean, everything's fine now. Well, everything's fine until it's not. We don't know what kind of issues may come up with the building in the future. Currently, the situation has been sustained for 40 years. We don't know how long that will last. Now, I think the current rent, as one of our citizens says, about $495 a month for a one-bedroom. Now, I used to pay $495 a month for a one-bedroom back in 1989. So when it says this is not just senior housing, this is subsidized senior housing. And of course, $1,100 minus $495 is about $700 a month times about 12, about $6,000 a month times 15 residents is about $90,000 a year in subsidies that the city is currently paying. So it's not simply a senior issue. We're talking about a subsidized income issue here. So with that, I stated last time, and I'll say it again, I won't support any proposal that doesn't support the current residents. That said, if we're going to go forward with this, I think we need to look a little deeper into it and come up with an overall financial plan on how we can make this work and how the current residents, can be supported properly. I think it would make sense if we're trying to get out of the subsidized renting business, we put a moratorium on any future residents and then go from there. We grandfather in the ones that exist. But I think the overall financial plan requires somewhat of I'm going to say a workshop, something to that tune, to where everybody's on board with how we proceed. So that's at this point, I'm not against the principle. I just think we need to do our homework a little bit better. So.
Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I agree with what Councilman Anderson said, but I would also add the other thing that is bothersome to me is I think we need some specificity around what the intent is with the money from the proceeds from the sale. We can talk about generalizations, but I'd like to see some specificity so that when we ask the residents if they want to do this, we can tell the residents what we're intending for the money that we receive for the sale of that property. So I agree. I think there needs to be further discussion before we do anything to determine what we're going to do and what the best course of action is to support the current residents of Renshaw and to properly identify what we're going to do with the funds when we receive them for all residents of Clawson.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, and I'll piggyback on that from what you just said, all the residents of Clawson. So I think that's something that we're not speaking for everybody in this town when it comes to the funds and the money that we could use for the allocation for 15 people, that we could do more things for more people that are beneficial to everyone in this community. And I appreciate the thought and effort that the previous administrations back in the 70s went and saw that there was a need. Of course there was a need, right? There was a housing problem back in the 70s as much as there is now. It may be different, but there is a problem then. So if there was a housing problem regarding seniors back then, perhaps maybe we should be looking at additional 15 units someplace else within the community. But at that cost, in 1980, it cost $430,000 in order to build a unit for 15 units. So in 2025 dollars, that's $1.7 million that we would ask that we aside for 15 other people within our community. We have other uses that can benefit more people. And again, this is not a decision on us. This is a decision that's up for the voters. They have a right to decide what their tax monies are and how best they should be spent. Now, I think we have some things that we've talked about in the past regarding a senior center and the community center that is beneficial for all residents, including the seniors that are over at Renshaw now. And I think that's something we do need to consider. So we don't necessarily have the specifics regarding that right now because I think any sale would have to be a condition of the residents that are in Renshaw at the moment. All right, that needs to be considered. So, what that stipulation is, I'm not sure, but.
So I would encourage council to think of it like this. You have the say, so you say yes or no, whether or not it does sell. So if you were to put conditions on it up front, I think what you would be doing is limiting your market interest as to what would be offered to you. And if that's the case, then we might be limiting ourselves right out of opportunities. You have the ability to put parameters in place as to how the current residents would be handled. And that would be part of your, any package that would come before you. But I think if you were to put it on in advance, I think you're going to severely limit your market interest.
Well, what is the goal here? Is the goal to get out of the business of being landlords? Is the goal to to sell an asset that we have so that we can take those dollars and use it somewhere else for more people? Or is the goal, I think we've talked about it, and it's not like it's lost, like what the points are that you've given us. I think they're all valid points, and I do think this is something that clearly the residents have to determine this. I think it's a fair question to say, let's take it to the residents, but I don't think we're at the point where we should take it to the residents. I think we need to do a deeper dive. I think people need to understand why we would sell, what the benefits of it would be, what the pros and the cons would be. And I do think, putting 11,000, 12,000 residents over 15, that's a math thing that's kind of easy to figure out which one you should be going for. But at the same time, we made a commitment to people, and what will it look like? I think as a voter, I want to know what it would look like. I want to know what the ramifications are. I do want to send it to the voters for the voters' choice. I just think there's more questions that could be answered prior to doing that would give us a better opportunity to make it a good sale. I don't want it to be information that look, this is what we're pushing, and then have a narrative out there that they hate these elderly people who've been living here, because that's not really the case at all, but that is all that will sell at this point on something like that. It's a bigger question, and the ramifications are bigger, and the possibilities of the sale have much more weight to them than just, let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can protect them. Let's see. It has to be more tangible. It's a business decision, and we need more details to go along with it. And I know you've given us some. I do understand that we have them.
The biggest detail that you're not talking about, ma'am, and I'll defer to the city attorney, is the legal exposure that we briefed you guys multiple times. And I'm on the record, the city attorney's on the record.
But
you might be dismissive of it, but that is the number one motivation.
But it's not that it's a bad thing, right? But do we shut down all of our buildings because they're a potential liability? Because they are. We have to think practically about what we have and why we have it, and how to best share the information so that people can make a solid decision. I've talked to so many people who are like, yeah, put it on the ballot, let's just sell it. It would be great for all of us. But then I've also talked to other people that are like, no, how could Clawson is supposed to be this little city with a heart. You're not showing a heart if you're displacing people who have lived there part of their time. Neither one of those should be the primary reason for doing it. People need facts. They need to make a sound decision. what's it look like if we sell? What does it look like if we don't? And I do get the legal liability, but it's not the only thing, because we have that in other places.
I would point out that there's no other place where seniors reside overnight in the city. So
That we're
we
reliable.
own, that we're responsible for.
That's true.
I would like to see any ballot language that we were to put forward, because ultimately it is probably going to go on the ballot, whether it's now or later, because the residents do need to decide. But any ballot language needs to include exactly what protections we're suggesting we're giving these residents, because we can't have them sit for 9 months, 10 months, a year, not knowing what their future is going to have. So our ballot language, whenever we do it, if we don't do it today, if we do it down the road, the ballot language needs to include what we're going to do with the proceeds, and it has to include what the conditions that we're going to put on the sale to protect the residents as far as notice or golden parachutes or safety nets or whatever we're going to do. We've heard a lot of people say, we're going to take care of you, make promises, but the only way that those promises can be upheld by whoever's sitting on here on the dais whenever the sale happens is if they're codified in the ballot language.
I don't, if I may, Madam Mayor, I don't think that that we're going to be able to put a sales contract before you'll have to just basically make it fairly generic for the sale of it. And then the contractual stipulations would be developed by council and the administration.
So in contract, if you have a lease and if I own a building and I sell it and I have it fully occupied and my people have leases, if you purchase from me, you're purchasing their leases.
Correct.
Intact. So whatever
Right.
their lease states, you have to honor that.
That's correct.
Correct? So, but we don't technically have leases with
We do.
them?
We do. They're month-to-month leases.
Okay.
So they're
Yeah.
tossed out in a month, and we can't let people, if someone buys it and buys the lease, then they can kick them out at the end of the month if they're month to month.
No.
My point is that if we're going to go forward with selling it, if that's what the public decides that they want, we also need to be the big city with the little heart and take in consideration the mental health of the residents who are living there, and they can't be living in limbo about whether or not they're going to have a place to lay their head in a month or 2 months. So we've talked about, that we're going to say we're going to wait till everyone voluntarily leaves or through some other means leaves the residence, or we're going to wait 2 years before we sell. We've heard all these things talked about on the dais about the safety nets we're going to provide these residents. They need to be codified as part of the sale so that we're taking in consideration these humans that are gravely affected by the potential sale.
Mr. Raker, so ADA is triggered if someone does a major modification. If you're doing a modification to your building, we trigger ADA, right?
A substantial, yes. If you were to take a look at the ADA audit on page 2, because the Renshaw apartment building was constructed around 1981, prior to the ADA's adoption in 1990, compliance should not be required. However, due to the complexity of all the related laws and statutes, it is conceivable that a judgment could be made to the contrary.
Well,
That is the big issue.
yeah, but if let's say that you needed a major renovation at Renshaw, it would trigger ADA.
Correct.
To some form. So we can't say it's not going to trigger it. We're not grandfathered in because there's no such thing, because certain things trigger it automatically. So
That's why we looked into this, and it was just simply, it was like looking at what the cost would be to replace the roof, which is not quite needed just yet, but that's what we were looking at. And then I was like, oh, let me look into this, what's the requirement for ADA? And I had a conversation with the city attorney, got the city engineer involved, and here we are 2 years later.
well,
So if I may, Madam
Yeah,
Mayor,
go
so
ahead.
you can't put a timetable on when those repairs are going to be met that meets that threshold that puts it in to ADA compliancy, right? That's a timetable that we don't know, but we know will happen. It's a known unknown that at some point, something's going to be required for that building that will trigger us to either overhaul it to some extent or something that will at least be enough to get into that requires
I
ADA?
think it would be the mitigation of how much risk you currently have. Now, you could mitigate it by making a couple of the suites. I think within the report, it talked about 2 of them could be renovated to be compliant, but then all the other ones will never be compliant.
Yeah.
And so we continuously have that exposure. And then if you were to actually get in and say, you know what, let's throw an ungodly amount of money at this and we'll make them all ADA compliant, well, then you'd have to displace everybody to actually make that building ADA compliant.
And is it necessarily the building itself that needs to be repaired that could potentially trigger ADA? Could it be the parking lot or the sidewalk that's on the property that could potentially, if necessary?
I defer to the city attorney.
I'm not sure, actually. I don't think I know the answer
Okay,
to that
all right.
one. But it could be, technically speaking, I think it could be, because the language is broad, so it's substantive.
It's a service
parking lot
provided
could
to
be,
the residents in addition to a roof over their head, right, that we're subsidizing.
Right.
That if it became one that the parking lot was so pothole-ridden that it needed completely overhauled, potentially that could, but we don't know the answer.
I don't.
I don't think I don't think it requires you to do the entire thing. We're living with an attractive legal risk that does not get mitigated unless you redo the whole thing or get out of the business altogether, which has been
The fact that it is not ADA compliant, and though we are though we are not required because we have, even though being grandfathered in is not a notion in law, but because we are already in existence and we don't have to do anything at this particular moment, if something were to happen at that location, we would have no defense to it, right? Whatever happens. And I'll remind council without speaking with specificities, but we do have currently litigation that we're defending on slip and falls throughout the city that have forced us to defend and to defend issues that where otherwise they don't exist, in our opinion. What I extrapolate from that is that if we look at a place where we have known issues, such as with this particular facility, I think council just needs to take all that into account.
So what I'm hearing is this is a very layered issue, and there are a lot of ways to look at it. And I think we need a workshop, which was discussed by many people earlier. I do think it would be really important to take it to the community and have you guys come with real data, with real information, with photos, with all of those things, and say, this is why it's in our best interest to do that. And I know you're going to say you've already done it, and you have done it to us, but you haven't done it to the public, and it's important to do it, present it to the public as well, because we're tasked with sending it to the public, which again, don't have a problem doing. I do believe the community would make a great decision on this. I think it belongs with the residents, but you have to have a reason why you're selling something and a very clearly stated reason why you're selling something before you send stuff to the resident, to the voters.
I'm not sure, Madam Mayor, I'm not sure how more clear we can be from a legal perspective.
I think you laid out the problem clearly. We need to figure out the solution clearly, which is not simply selling it. Selling it's part of the solution, but again, there's subsidization issues involved here. It's not just a senior citizen issue. So I agree with the mayor. Basically, I think we sit down, have a workshop or workshops to come up with an overall plan. I got a few in my head right now. I mean, you could say, for example, in ballot language, that all proceeds from the sale of the property will be put into escrow, which will be used to subsidize existing residents' rent. I mean, there's all sorts of ways it can be done. But no, I thank you, Mr. Raker. You have laid out the problem with good clarity. Now the question is, how clear are we in a solution? I think we need more time for that.
Well, and it's a difficult thing, right? Councilmember Moffett and we sat through this with Mike Smith, who brought it before council many years ago. The same thing, the same concerns. And not to say council's daft and didn't get what they were saying, that, we didn't understand that there are potential issues with it, but the reasoning has to be better than, I don't think we want this business anymore, because that's what people are hearing. They're just hearing, we don't want to be in the landlord business. That's not a good enough reason. And I think people want to know what the options are with the money if we do have a sale and we collect money. What are the options for that? Those are selling points to people for something like this.
Ma'am, all that is on my cover page.
Okay, but it needs to be presented beyond us.
Well, and it would be good to get
Don't be annoying.
some specificity from someone with a background in ADA compliance and what would trigger it. We need someone, who's a specialist in dealing with that particular segment of the law, who can talk to us very specifically about what the threshold is for us and what the possible, I'm not saying what you're saying isn't real, but there's segments of the law and there's experts on these types of things. So if we were to bring in someone who is, works in the disabilities compliance area to talk to us about exactly what those triggers, because, Councilmember Shepherd asked her a question, is just doing the parking lot something that triggers it? Who could talk to us about all the scenarios about what would trigger, what wouldn't trigger, and then maybe also someone, again, who works with senior citizens who could talk to us about what kind of practicable safety nets we could build for these people, what would be reasonable things that we could do if we do sell to make sure that they're cared for. So getting some experts in the area of senior housing and Americans with Disabilities compliance and those types of things might be the information that we need to be able to feel comfortable moving forward. Because I don't disagree, the citizens do need to weigh in on this, but we need to present it in a manner that suggests that we have thought of everything and we're going about it, prudently.
That's why I appreciate what you just said as far as a prudent thing. Your prudent comment, I should say, that I think what we're trying to do is do what's most prudent for all of the citizens of Clawson. So I understand what you're trying to achieve, but at the same time, that we feel good about it and that we're never going to get to that point. We never will. I don't see an outcome where everybody is kumbaya, this is how we're going to move forward. This is a difficult decision. These are the hard decisions that have to be made on behalf of all the citizens of Clawson. So, and my concern is that we're running out of time and we're kicking the can down the road again. And that's a disservice to everyone who's a taxpayer within this city. And it's not a comment regarding the residents of Renshaw. That do not miss my point on that. It's unfortunate that we got into this situation in the first place. I've gone back to the history of this, and it just shocks me that we were willing to spend the equivalent of $1.7 million in 1980, and I'm looking at some of the minutes, and there's nobody who comes up and speaks regarding whether or not that's a wise decision or not. I get it, right? Because at that point in time, there was 5 years of waiting over at Clawson Manor. There probably still is that length of time. But at the same time, we've had litigation regarding that piece of property even before anything was put into the ground. It has been that type of I don't want to say boondoggle, but it's one thing that we have involved ourselves as a city that we should never have in the first place. And it's unfortunate that, again, it becomes down to a hard decision from this council that we have to make. But again, it's not us that makes that ultimate decision. It's the residents, and we should give them that right to decide what they want best for their tax dollars.
We should, but we should also educate them appropriately so that they can make a sound decision. And I think that's the one tipping point. I think most of us agree that it is a resident decision. It goes to the voters. We want them to make that decision, however it would come out. But you have to present it in a way that it's understanding what we're doing and why. Excuse me, Mr. Raker.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about that.
So if you recall, when we did the infrastructure bond, it wasn't until after you decided to put it on the ballot that we had the information campaign. And the same would actually occur in this instance as well. And it's an information directorate. It's objective information. It's not, if I were to start doing that now, then it's like, I want it done. I don't want it done necessarily. I want the process to go. And the process is for the people to make the decision.
I just think the people need more information. I don't think that we thought.
They will.
I understand that, but before they make the vote, before they vote, they should have at least some specificity on those two issues. How are we going to support the seniors that are currently
100%.
there, and what are we going to do with the money on the sale? I mean, those two simple things. If we just come up with just a few things, these are the possibilities. These are the possibilities for these two things. Then we give it to the residents to make a decision. Then they can say, well, based on this information, yes or no. But I don't think we're giving them any of that information. I'm nervous. I want to put this before the people. I really do. I want the residents to decide. I want them to. But if you brought this to me right now, without any information, it would be a no.
Okay, it's going to be a no, I can see that, but I brought you the information.
No, I'm saying if you brought it to a vote, Mr. Aker, right now, if you had it on the ballot right now, and I went into the voting booth to vote on it, given the information that we have now, it would be a no. I would like you to provide enough information that maybe the residents would get to a yes, because we're providing them with transparent information about what we think we're going to be able to do for the seniors and with the proceeds from the sale.
And to Councilmember Scott's point, we do not have specificity about what we're going to provide for the residents. And so, and we have chambers full of people. Everyone has spoken against it. These people would vote no, they would lobby for a no vote. But if we could put parameters in place so that we had, again, those safety nets for the residents, that they're going to be cared for, because that's everybody's only objection. No one is saying, no, we don't want $1 to $5 million in the city coffers. They're saying we want our residents, our valuable senior residents taken care of. So if we can provide them that piece of information about how the sale would incorporate that, then maybe we could successfully put it on the ballot, successfully move it forward for sale with those provisions for the residents.
Mr. Aker?
Mr. Newshai, would we be putting the specificity of these parameters on the ballot necessarily, or would it be the sale of it up or down, and then independently the administration, the council, various stakeholders would provide, the administration will provide objective information, and people can advocate one way however they want?
Correct, the latter. Obviously, the ballot language has to be very simple, concise by operation of both state law and the Constitution, obviously. And then only upon it returning to this body with the authority to sell, or, well, in the case of the authority to sell, would then you would be able to place limits, whatever the limitations that you deem appropriate. Or not sell, because the right to sell does not necessarily imply that you would sell.
You could put on the ballot that the proceeds would go into, I think someone mentioned, equity or a fund for the residents to be taken care of before it's given to the city. Or you could put that a portion of the funds would go to set up, trust funds for these people. There's a lot of things you could put in the language about what you're going to do with the money, right?
A simple, true statement, yes, but you couldn't say things like a portion of this, because now it's no longer concise.
But we could write safety nets about the money and how the money would be used to protect the residents in the ballot language.
Sure, you could have a simple statement which would say, for example, the first one that you mentioned, you could have something like that. It says the funding, whatever proceeds would be used towards, I don't know, the senior center. Right.
No, I'm not talking about the senior center. I'm talking about these residents, that the current residents.
Oh, ma'am, then it would be wholesale unconstitutional, because you're taking money that belongs to 12,500 residents of the city of Clawson and granting it to 15 members.
You're giving them a loan.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have no, we have no means to codify protection for these residents by putting it on the ballot.
You still hold you have the authority to say no.
The decision-making. Council has the ability to codify all that it wants when it comes back under, if the citizens of the city of Clawson vote to give you the right to be able to sell it. But, only at that point do you have the right then to place whatever limitations you deem appropriate as to the sale, conditions, What do you do with the money? Everything under the sun.
Or sell it, period. We don't even have to sell it.
Yeah, you hold all the
That's the
cards.
things, all right, like, just, this is the right of the voters to decide. And then we will have the decision on whether we actually sell it or not.
But
And we can have those discussions that you're concerned about. But if we don't put it on the ballot, it's gonna get kicked down the road for another 7 years, and we're sitting on the same amount of opportunity, whatever that may be, right? And we could say, hey, you know, we're not selling it.
But if we put it on the ballot this November, we have no idea who's going to be sitting on the dais to make those decisions and what kind of guarantees, how they're going to take care of the residents. And that's the issue with putting it on for this November. We don't know who's going to be up here after
It
that.
may not even be supported.
Dan, you have to
But the
trust.
fact that we have to put it on the ballot, I mean, that's a right, that is this hard decision that we were voted on to do here, to put that on the ballot. And whether or not it passes or fails, that's not up to us. That's up to the citizens of this city.
But we don't want to put something on a ballot that doesn't have enough backing that we feel confident that it would.
We don't have to sell it. We don't have to sell
Yeah,
it.
but why do this at all?
Because we have given us the
Legal
right to make
exposure.
that decision.
No, I get it, but we also have the right to make a decision in the manner that we choose is the best decision, right? The best decision-making process. We always talk about process. We're concerned about process. Like, it takes, this is not, do you want to sell your house and buy another one that's better? This is not that decision. This is, do you want to sell something that belongs to the city and displace certain people and then do what with it? That's what this is. It's too many unknowns all at once. We need to solidify it a little bit and then address it. Again, let's take it to the people, 100%, but not like this. That it's just not prepared. It's haphazard. It's like
I don't think
asking
it's
for a
haphazard.
failure.
I don't think it's haphazard.
I don't honestly think a lot of people in Clawson even know that we own Renshaw. I don't think they would know that we have 15 people who live there, or 12, or how many ever on any given day. I do think that's real, which could affect the vote both ways, right? Or definitely one way, because people are like, oh wait, we can do what with this? But I don't think it's fair to put something out without the appropriate information to say, this is what we're doing, this is what we have, this is what it's worth, this is what the value is today. Because today there's a value, and it's meted by 15 residents who are at home there. There's ways around that. I'm confident that if it gets to the residents, when it gets to the residents to make a decision, there's a way around that. There's a way. But we're not there yet. Like, you have to have things in place in order to present. Not just do it just because we can. And I respect I do respect everything that you've said, because I'm on board with half of it. I just am not on board with, we've done our due diligence to get it to a place where we were responsible to pass it off. That's how I feel.
May I ask, Madam Mayor, what is a timeline in order to get it on the November ballot?
This is it.
That's it.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, I'd suggest we not do a special election for this one. Although, all in favor?
I reserve that right.
Okay. Anyone else on this?
Well, it's waited 45 years. I think it'll wait another one. But I think it does need to be put on the ballot. But I think, again, Mr. Raker and his team has done an excellent job of laying out the problem. Now we have to lay out the solution before we put it to the vote. And that'll probably take about a year.
One last comment. The solution gateway is the people, because if the people say, no, we don't want to sell it, then we have to look at how much money are we going to invest to mitigate the risk. So that's the people are the decider on that. That's why this is so important.
But they need to make an informed decision. I don't think they're in that position right now.
Any other comments? We have a motion on the table?
Well, the motion was for discussion. We definitely discussed it.
No, the motion
This
was
is
sale.
place on the place for sale.
Yep.
It was to place for sale. So the motion read, I move the placing of the sale of Renshaw Senior Apartments located at 120 Renshaw on the November 4th, 2025 city general election ballot be approved. Are we ready for a vote? Nick?
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
No.
Councilmember Scott,
No.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
No.
Mayor Milan.
No. Do we have any unfinished business this evening? No. Any public comments for items not on the agenda? If you'd like to speak to an item that we did not discuss on our agenda this evening, we welcome you to the podium. We will allot you 3 minutes. We ask you to state your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Julia Beatty, 159 North Bywood Avenue. I'm here tonight to exercise my right as a resident to address this council, which is protected under Michigan Open Meetings Act. This right exists precisely so residents can voice concerns without fear of dismissal or intimidation. 11 years ago this week, on August 11th, 2014, 3,000 cubic feet of sewage flooded my basement and countless others throughout the city. That catastrophic failure wasn't just a one-time event. It was a warning we have not yet met with the urgency it deserves at the corner of Bywood and Broadacre Avenue, where I live. The street continues to flood at a disturbing regularity. I have installed a backwater valve and a sump pump to protect my home, but that is not an affordable solution for everyone in my neighborhood. The city manager has kindly agreed to meet with me following the completion of the sewer camera work this August to discuss solutions for this persistent issue. I appreciate the willingness to engage, but it comes after 11 years of advocacy with multiple administration, dozens of emails inquiring on the issue with no physical remedy to our drainage issues yet. In the July 1st meeting, it came to my attention that I did not understand the expenditures of the use of the bond money. While I may not be a municipal employee, I have read the infrastructure plan thoroughly and am committed to learning more through clear and transparent communication. Residents shouldn't require government experience to understand how their tax dollars are being spent within critical infrastructure. Last month's flooding in our county, when Rochester Hills received 5 inches of rain within an hour, should serve as an urgent reminder that we're facing the same conditions that devastated our community in 2014. Climate change isn't waiting for us to catch up, and neither should our infrastructure planning. We pay some of the highest sewer rates in Oakland County, and we deserve sewer systems that can handle the realities of our changing climate. I urge this council and city government to continue to expand partnerships with our neighboring communities, the Oakland County Water Commissioner, who I personally have met with, and the 12 Towns Drain Facility. These regional collaborations are not just good policy, they're essential for addressing flooding that doesn't respect municipal boundaries. We need comprehensive, large-scale solutions, not piecemeal fixes that leave residents cleaning sewage from our basements every few years. I look forward to hearing your plans for our infrastructure, and I thank you for your partnership.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniel Boyle. I'm a resident, 226 Broadacre Avenue. A little bit of belly aching, a little bit of just also calling out, so thank you for bearing with me. I'd like to formally complain about the development of the new build that is going on next to my home on Broadacre Avenue, under construction by Hill & Homes Developments. So construction began on that home August 2024, when the foundation was initially dug. During that foundation being excavated out, there's significant damage to my personal property, wherein the primary residence driveway was really messed up, is just the way to put it. I have multiple slabs being cracked, very significant shifting up to 1 inch in certain places, and that's when I initially measured when they initially dug, right? I was advised by the Hill & Homes build manager not to park my personal vehicle on my own driveway because, quote, I've seen entire driveways fall into the build foundation. Erosion of the ground beneath my driveway into the direction of the new build foundation began as well. No shoring was applied until after I complained. No safety fence was installed by Hill & Homes until after I complained as well. It was just a big open pit on the road for probably a couple weeks. But also thank you to the city. After I did complain, they got out there and they put it up. Let's see. I'm sorry, scrolled too fast. Advised by Hill & Homes that the damaged driveway would not be replaced until November 2024. Promise not fulfilled as of August 2025. Contacted by build manager. Repair will come in July 2025 with no timeline reported. Damage to public walkway in front of development still present since initial damage from August 2024. Personally watched several children on Halloween fall due to damage created from the trip hazards created from the damaged concrete. And residents with strollers and limited mobility have to leave the sidewalk and enter Broadacre Avenue to avoid the damage. No attempt to remedy the sidewalk was made on the developer's part until the residents lodged a complaint with the city. Repair was superficial at best with lots of still uneven cracked slabs. No one really walks on it. Damage to Broadacre Avenue, the main street in front of the development, still present since initial damage, August 2024. Developer patch has since eroded and is essentially a giant pothole at this point. I would like to encourage the city to be more conscientious of the safety hazards that are created as civil construction activities ramp up in this city. Quite frankly, it's by sheer luck and the active efforts of the community that have brought these potential hazards to light that we have avoided injury on people's parts as they navigate around these construction sites. I would also like to know to what level of accountability the city intends to hold developers to as they damage public property and continuing to delay the repair as it relates to their own financial interests, which really isn't the public's problem. Additionally, out of respect and concern to my new neighbors who will be eventually moving into that home next door to me, I'm concerned that the structure has remained exposed to the elements since being erected January 2025. The external wood has become bleached, warped, and cracked. I am not a licensed professional civil engineer. However, I do want to see my neighbors live in a good home. That's also something, like you were saying, an advisor, a licensed professional civil engineer would probably be who you reach out to and contact.
Daniel, if you want to meet with Nick Stepnitz or Mr. Raker after the
Sure,
meeting,
yeah.
they'd be happy to help you.
Thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you.
for going over time a bit.
No, you're fine. Thanks for coming today. Anybody else?
Hi, Jamie Gills, Takanochi. Mayor Milan, I'd like to address your recent comments in the city newsletter. Your call for unity and positivity is in direct conflict with your action here on this dais. You ask us to focus on the good and not on things that might be taking too long. But we can't ignore issues like this. We have citizens who have been trying to address water and sewage problems for over 11 years. We just heard from one. Furthermore, this council failed to appoint a council member to a vacant seat in a timely manner, didn't write an ordinance that would have helped with that process for over 17 months, so we're in violation of the charter. Ignoring these serious issues is not positive. It's a failure of leadership. True leadership means accepting the will of the people, even when you disagree. When our citizens voted to increase the council's membership to 7, a result approved by 58% of the vote, you and 2 other council members tried to overturn it with a contentious special election that cost taxpayers in excess of $20,000. The people were not divided. They were clear in their decision. And the final vote of over 62% proved that. This shows a fundamental disrespect for our community's democratic processes. True inclusivity means making everyone feel welcome and respected, regardless of their faith or beliefs. The practice of starting our meetings with a Christian prayer and the addition of the "In God We Trust" plaque sends a clear message of exclusion. When all proclamations end with your personal recognition, except for the Pride Proclamation, it's divisive, not unifying. Finally, I've observed that you use divisive language yourself when you referred to the council people who sit to your right and the council people who sit to your left. You also chide members of council who disagree with you. And you often use your times at the end for comments to dismiss the public, implying we are uninformed or don't know enough. You show a clear double standard in how you gavel residents who are critical the moment their time is up, but allow those who are praising you to continue. We need a mayor who's committed to fairness and inclusivity for all residents, not just those who agree with you. The noise that you find disruptive, that's the voice of your community, the very people you were elected to represent. True leadership embraces different perspectives because that is what makes us stronger. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Dan Maxon. I live at 748 School. School Street between Selfridge and Bywood is a mess. But, you know, there's only 5 people or 6 people that live on that street that face the street. So I've got 5 people against 12,000 to figure out whether or not you're going to pave or repave my street. That's kind of what I get the inference from this particular meeting today. I don't like it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, not seeing anyone else come forward. We'll close public comments. Move to city clerk's report, as we don't have a city clerk, but we have Nick sitting in the city clerk seat. Nick, do you have anything for us?
No report from the city clerk's office.
Thank you. How about a city attorney's report, Mr. Newshire?
Nothing additional this evening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, do we have a city manager's report?
Yes, ma'am. Sewer cleaning inspection continues, and we are currently at 71%. Just as a reminder, we have a sectional map. Pardon me. Sewer cleaning and inspection continues, and we are currently at 71% complete. As a reminder, we do have a sectional map of the city that is updated when necessary and is located on the city's website under DPW and engineering under the tab cleaning and televising sewers. Cinnamon in the Street has been rescheduled to Saturday, September 6th. I'm aware that the school district PTO has an event earlier that afternoon into the early evening. My hope is that we will be cooperating and collaborating to host two mutually beneficial events. Pending any questions, that's my brief.
Any questions? No? Okay, city council comments. Councilmember Scott?
I don't have anything this evening.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
I have no comments.
And Councilmember Shepherd?
I would like to congratulate for a fantastic season for the players within the CYBSL and their championships and almost championships from top to bottom. It was an exciting season. The 16U team finally wrapped up their game on August 1st. With the championship win over Waterford. I would also like to give a shout out to Sarah McLeod, who was also the first ever first-team All-State softball player from Clawson High School, and her achievement this year.
Nice. Okay.
That's all.
I would like to remind everyone that Saturday is the car show downtown. So go, have fun, support your local Clawson Lions Club, and enjoy a good day. Pray for good weather. And then other than that, I just want to thank everyone for doing what they do here. For those who share good thoughts, I'd like to thank you and wish everyone a very good evening. And I call this, or someone want to call this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, fight over the adjournment. Nick?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes. This meeting is adjourned.